It's recording as well.
We're good?
Yep.
So this is for the record, right?
We're on the record.
Okay, 1 second. Yes.
One moment, please. So we'd like to bring to order the March 16th meeting of the Northfield Fire District Building Committee at 3 o'clock. Those present are Derek Farrell, Tim Sattler, Lisa Martin, Dennis Manning, Kevin Waldron, and Commissioner's Representative John Sillick, and the Chief. There are no members from the public, and we're here to allow Fulcrum Associates to introduce themselves. So, thank you, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
That sounds like a great segue, yes.
I'm sorry, my name is Paul Blaisdell. I'm the chairman of the committee. So, welcome.
Paul, thank you. Thank you. I'll start. My name is Joe Kiefer, and myself and Bob have been up and walk the site visit and everything, so we've been around. We just took a drive by the Park Street facility as well. I'm with Fulcrum Associates, and my colleague here, Dave Henderson, is Director of Operations for Fulcrum. And at the end, Daryl Luter is the President of Fulcrum Associates, and Bob Robichek here is with LaValle Brenzinger, the architect that will be on our team. So we do appreciate the opportunity to present our team as a consideration for the solution moving forward. We have quite a bit to discuss. What we'd like to do is just spend a few minutes to tell you who we are, what we've done in the past with similar types of projects and others as well, and spend like 10 minutes on that, go over some of the credentials, and then from there we'd like to talk with you and have you tell us about what you're trying to do. What are your challenges? What are your ideas? Where are we going to go? How are we going to work this together? That's kind of our approach. And we'll be going into details. Bob's got some examples of some past projects. He's got some programming examples, things that we can consider moving forward. Okay? So I'll start myself. I work at Fulcrum. Dave, you can explain yourself
Sure.
a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Again, Dave Henderson. I'm the Director of Operations for Fulcrum. My role in this project will be, one of support for the pre-construction team and Bob, as well as continuity from start of the project through the construction part of the project. I'll act as the project executive during the construction once it passes bond vote, warrant articles. I've been in the business 27 years now. Worked on a variety of projects from downtown Boston high-rises to Manchester Fire Department right now that we're doing right now. Working with Bob, the pre-construction and another police and fire project in Bedford, New Hampshire. So this is one that, again, we'd love to have. The project manager we have slated for this is a firefighter too, Megan. So she brings some credibility to it as well and understands what you and your team are looking for in a facility like this.
As we're going down the line here, so my name is Bob Robichek. I'm the Civic Studio Leader for LaValle Brenzinger. My specialty is public safety, fire, police, EMS, 911, EOC dispatch. Been doing this for over 42 years. About 35 years of that has been working on a variety of public safety projects. I mean, there's dozens of them. We're working together in Bedford right now with a police and a fire. But I'm currently also working in multiple New Hampshire municipalities, including Lincoln, Bedford, Exeter, Portsmouth, etc. So there's a lot of knowledge base there, and we've done projects in Maine as well. That's pretty much all I do. Having said that, every department's very different. The chiefs run their departments different, so there are overarching issues in design we'll talk about. But we don't approach any project cookie cutter approach. So.
Daryl Luter, President of Fulcrum. I've been in the industry for about 2 decades. I've been jumping on and off of equipment since I was about 5 years old. So I've been in and around construction my entire life. I've held every single position in our company from laborer all the way up through to where I am today. So My role in the project, obviously through pre-construction, is going to be overseeing the pre-construction process and making sure that the team is aligned and supported. I also have a role of continuity during construction. I do like to be involved in as much as I can, not because I have to be, but because I want to be. Construction for me is more of a passion. You don't find me as a billable line item on a project budget. I'm there because I know what our team needs, and I just want to be sure that they're getting everything that they possibly need to be able to execute your project. Our organization has been in business since about 1989. It was started as a construction management firm, and that's kind of what we built our foundation on over the past 30 plus years. We have prided ourselves on being able to come in early on in a project and to be able to drive and develop the inner workings of a job. We find the most value is before you put a shovel in the ground. So our team, in partnership with LaValle Brenzinger here, we've done this countless times where working with architect and engineers early on, we're able to make sure that knowing that there's a financial target that we're trying to hit, that the design kind of drives in that direction, and as soon as it starts to fall outside of that lane, that's when our knowledge and expertise kind of kicks in and we say, you know what, let's kind of pull it back this way and see if there's another way to do it and kind of keep us in check financially. We've done just about everything in the industry. We've hit hospitality, we've hit industrial manufacturing, municipal buildings. Dave alluded to a firehouse we're doing in Manchester right now for Station 9. Also the Bedford project, which is about a 30,000 square foot combined police and fire safety complex. We're looking at several others, including this one. But our depth of experience is pretty broad. So there's really nothing in here that falls outside of our abilities here. So, the design build process for us is unbelievably collaborative. We find it very important to make sure that early on we sit back and kind of identify your expectations and understand how we're going to weave those into the project so that we're hitting every single talking point that you guys need to hit. Understanding that there's a community outreach component to this. Bob's team will be involved in that heavily, we'll be involved in that heavily. But that whole process is kind of initiated in a timeline. And we kind of took a second here before we started and we put these placemats in front of us. And on the front of the placemat, pretty obvious, just a directory of who we have here today, a couple of examples of work and topics of discussion. But on the back, this is where we've really taken the pre-construction process and outlined a series of timelines and milestones. So looking at what we have here, we've kind of identified how the project kicks off and works through each stage of the pre-construction process, ultimately getting through community outreach and getting us to a bond vote. So Bob, if you want to kind of take us through your programming process.
Sure, absolutely. So everybody's looking at this, right? So the first thing we did is in the RFP, it said 2023. Well, that would have been like Tuesday this week. So we figured that wasn't going to happen. So we made the assumption that you're really going to be shooting for a year from now. You seem like a reasonable assumption. So I'm just going to walk you through this really quickly. I think the stars really represent the meetings that I believe were mentioned in the RFP. There's a lot of meetings, but that's fine. Whatever you feel necessary to communicate with each other, as well as with the public, the community at large. We have two communities here, right? So, but when we do kick off, I'll be at the meeting, and there's I'm not the only person in LaValle Brenzinger. I mean, I have a team of people that do that work with me. A lot of resumes are in the submittal that we submitted. We just didn't want to bring 10 people here to do a presentation in an hour, So, but I lead the programming planning effort because that's my specialty as public safety designer planner as well as a studio leader for a civic. So we have kickoff meeting. Kickoff meeting is critical because we're going to establish all the benchmarks we need to schedule. We might talk about budget. You're going to tell us why you think the prior efforts might have failed. So we learn from that. Whatever else you meet the players. We get a feel for each other like we are today actually. And then we start collecting the information on programming. You've done this before, so it might have already been a program. What we find is that I have two instances just in 2023, and we're only 2 months in, where a department had a new chief, and we might have done a program for the prior chief, or designed for the prior chief, or something's changed in the programming, so the program has to be looked at, updated. And so I'm on line 2. We'll do questionnaires, we do a program. I have a sample later I can show you from Lebanon, it turns out. That's a good example. Chief Christopoulos retired, new chief comes in, Chief Whitley. Chief Whitley was a captain under Chief Christopoulos, but Chief Whitley has some different ideas specifically about some of the things he wanted to change in the program. That's a great example of that, okay? That happened in the last 90 days. So we'll do a program, and basically, actually, this orange piece right here probably can go to here, because the first thing we do to do a sniff test as a team is cost load that program based on what we believe as a group, based on our educated knowledge of the construction market, what various levels of quality of a project, if it's next door, it's a new building, whether it's a renovation addition, we're going to cost load that program. It's going to tell us right away what ballpark we're going to be in, right guys?
Yeah, that whole process is kind of outlined through an estimating system that we have in place that is based off of historical data.
Right, so that almost starts to happen here, you know? So we don't really start the concept design, initial concept, which is site test fitting here, site test fitting at the existing location on that field next to the building, whatever, until we know the program is set, because the program is our touchstone. That's what's going to take us through all the options that we're going to do. So then we do that. We then have all these meetings along the way, so we're going to be reviewing the concept, reviewing the design, and then ideally come up with a solution. Now here, our understanding, and I'm cutting it a little bit into your project, but was a 14,000 square foot roughly new building, correct? Possibly right next door to the police, or a renovation addition on the current site, right?
Park Street, right?
Park Street, right. So we will have to, at some point, there has to be a decision made as to what is the best approach, probably most likely based on cost, right? We're going to do, so all along the way, we're collaborating together as a team to develop that conceptual budget, so that when we get to the final concept and the final report, that's all taken care of into consideration. The other thing that happens is continuous communication. If you want to talk about that, then I can wrap it up with the community outreach. But do you want to talk about the communication piece?
So,
internally, I mean.
So internally, obviously, our teams will meet on a regular basis, but communication is going to be open to anybody and everybody that you guys see fit. Our whole purpose is, like I spoke about earlier, was collaboration, because it's a collective effort. It's not just two people sitting behind closed doors getting this done. It takes a lot of input from a lot of community members to make sure that we're actually providing a product that is going to be exactly what the town is looking for. So communication for us is absolutely paramount, and ultimately that segues into community outreach. You know, we have to sell the project to the community. People have to believe and understand that this is going to be a benefit for them. It's going to be a benefit for surrounding communities. Obviously, it being two districts here, it's sometimes harder than others to do that. And I understand there's been some historical opposition to this, but our goal is to find ways to work around that, to understand what that opposition has been, and to see if there's a path to really bring this thing across the line for a successful bond vote.
And we'll talk about community outreach a little bit down the line. I didn't want to jump the gun on that, but so that's kind of the schedule. But the assumption of the schedule, I guess the takeaway, is to give you really at least 4 solid months after the product is finished to be able to get the word out to the community, which we'll talk about a little bit later, about community outreach, and not to be done in February where the vote is like 4 weeks later, which is usually a recipe for disaster.
Right.
So.
And just so it's kind of out there, if you guys have questions and you want to fire back at us, I mean, this is as much your meeting as it is ours, so please don't hesitate to jump in and just ask. You know, we're here to answer anything, provide clarifications. But for us, the whole process in the pre-construction phase is pretty well outlined in what we see in the graphic back here. Some of the things that you're going to see that are going to come immediately after a successful bond vote are going to be a product of exercises that we do inside of this pre-construction phase. Cost estimating is going to be a big one, but procurement is actually probably even more important. Right now, for example, on just about every product that we touch, we're looking at electrical switchgear at 50+ weeks. We're looking at HVAC equipment at 30+ weeks. We're looking at times, random building products that will jump from 10 to 12 to 20 to 30.
Roof insulation, generators.
Exactly.
Generators, 70 weeks, right?
Yeah, 70 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's current condition, but at the time of a bond article being approved, that may change. It may be better, maybe worse. Hopefully, it's a variable
Yeah.
we're in the middle of.
Yeah, we're
Keeping that
working
standard is going to be important.
Yeah, but what we are going to do is we're going to plan for worst cases, so that, come day after bond vote, when we are successful, we're going to be able to hit the ground running and to start the release submittal process. Hoping to have identified through a design assist process on this to have subcontractor partners right out of the gate. And if we can do that sooner than later, we can release those long lead items so we can get those ordered. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we understand that this is still going to go out to competitive bid, and we are still going to solicit bids for multiple trades across the board. But the key takeaway is we're going to identify those things, and if we don't get them in place now, we're going to be significantly delayed right out of the gate.
Yeah, one of the things Bob mentioned early on is one of the things you can do is reverse engineer. If there's a budget in mind based upon the previous, attempts at passing this, design to that number versus creating a design and then putting a number to that. So if we know approximately what can work, then we can work backwards from that and still meet all the program requirements. That comes to all the communication as far as what we need, understanding what has transpired in the past, getting all that information to make that, determination at that time.
Yeah, I would support what you're saying because on the current 3 or 4 projects, all public safety, 3 are, one's combined police fire, one is police, 2 are just fire. We do a program, and that program lives on its own, regardless of whether it's a new building renovation, it doesn't matter, okay? Addition, the program, the statement of needs, we look 20 years out. That's as good as our windshield is, 20 years out, okay? Some people have a hard time thinking that way, but we do gently push to think forward based on demographics, growth of the town. Some places, for example, like in Bedford, the population is not growing tremendously. What's growing is the industrial commercial base, which is putting a big strain on delivery of public safety services, including police and fire and EMS, right? So it's not just population growth, it's what's happening around, right? So we'll cost load that program early on based on either new building or renovation addition, because there are different numbers involved for both of those, right? And we'll look and see what it's telling us, right? And then if we find that it's telling us X dollars, X million, but we find that that's not attainable based on your prior experience of, I'm sorry to say this, failed attempts at passing the warrant, we'll look at it and say, well, okay, so we have to reduce it 5% or 10%, without damaging what the functionality of a functional modern fire station is. Every one of these 4 projects I'm working on, including Bedford, including some other ones, we're working together, but I won't mention the other ones, names, we're doing exactly that. We have to cut 3, 5, 7% to get a quality building with the functions we need, but still make some kind of the people with the best idea as to what's going to pass is not us. It's you, So we need to listen to you about that. Now, if we feel that you're cutting muscle, we'll tell you that. And there's ways to get around that as well. Like I did, future expansions, phasing of the project 5 years more from now, or whatever it is, But we'll be honest. The one thing we're not going to get from us is a bunch of BS. We're going to be honest with you straight up. Because otherwise it's going to not end well no matter what. Right, Daryl? Yeah, it's not good. So
That's the approach. I mean, for example, our Manchester Fire project, their original design was a 3-bay, 2-story. We had since developed a budget that it wasn't supported by the community, so we had to go through re-engineering, redesign. Unfortunately, they had gone down the route of the design bid build, so they had already exhausted a significant amount of money right up front to develop a design that they didn't even know if it worked. We have the opportunity to flip that on end and to put together a design that will work into a number that is your target. But to Bob's point, when we do take that design into account, we do understand that there could come a time in the near future where there could be a need for an addition, there could be, expansion requirements outside of the facility. So we take the time to kind of integrate some of those provisions into the design right out of the gate, so that we're not
Yep.
coming back and starting all over when we have to put an addition on the building. So
Yeah.
you spend a small percentage to avoid a bigger cost if you were to come back and revisit this and put 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square feet on the side. So there are methods that we have that help to mitigate cost in the immediate and in the future. So there's a lot there.
A good example of that, we want to move on, by the way, please ask any questions, like we said, it's not a lecture, we're not at college lecturing to the students. A good example of that, to bring it to fire, is let's say that, this is all role play, so don't take it to fact for your project. Let's say the program says we need 6 apparatus bays for everything, large apparatus, ambulances, smaller vehicles, command vehicles, whatever, okay? And we do this and we say, well, you can only afford 4 bays now with all the support functions and the living spaces or whatever else you need. If we're designing a new building, and we would probably make, if it's a masonry building, I'm not saying it would be, we'd have a solid wall on one end because we're going to use big trusses, okay, for the roof, because the trusses are 4 or 5 feet tall. But if we're going to have 2 more bays on this side, you might 2 bays.
Okay.
We're going to use steel columns in that wall with a masonry infill or something, so that when we do the other bays, we'll just take that out and the columns are already there. If we weren't doing that, there'd be no columns perhaps, it'd be a solid masonry wall. That's a great example specific to fire, right?
Yeah.
So, because I don't think the chief would want a 12-inch solid masonry wall between his bays. With a little door around this bay.
So the pre-construction process is, again, it's pretty well defined in here as to what the deliverables are going to be based off of the milestones. I think it'd be beneficial to talk about what the construction process looks like on our end, so that you would understand that post-warrant article, what it's going to look like once we mobilize. And that's, kind of where my roles and responsibilities start to shift into Dave's realm. So Dave, if you want to kind of talk about just site logistics and staffing and procedures.
Sure. Megan, who we have in our RFP here, would be our project manager as of right now. She'd be dedicated to the project probably half-time, depending on what it is, but as far as costs are concerned, but she's going to take whatever time she needs on the job. I'm there as support for her and the superintendent. There's weekly meetings between subcontractors, there's weekly meetings with staff in the committee. There's pre-construction meetings with all the trades that we have on site. Everybody's welcome to attend that. All it does is set the ground rules for each trade as they come on site to make sure they understand what their parameters are, what the requirements are, what's expected of them from us and the community, which is important up front. There's a lot of times where people come on site, they just start doing whatever they're doing, and we have to reel them back in. But having them hear it from members of yourself, chief, other fire members, is critically important because they understand that it's the client telling them, not just us. All of our programs are done on Procore, which is a web-based, obviously Chief, you understand what that is, program where you can, anywhere in the world, you're on vacation, you want to see what's going on, pull it up. It's daily reports, it's photos, it's all of our financials are on there, submittals, RFIs, everything we do is in that, including the schedule, which obviously is always a big topic for everyone. The schedule is updated in there weekly between the project manager and the superintendent. That goes out every week on a Sunday night. Procore pushes that out to all the contractors. If you want to be involved in that, you can get a copy of it yourself. But it's pushed out every week with a 3-week look ahead, so all the trades understand what's going on. They can't say they didn't know what was going on. They can't say they didn't know there was a schedule. It's to give them a heads up. It's to give everyone else an understanding, comfort level of what's going on. In addition, every month, the master schedule is updated, and that gets pushed out as well. So everything is transparent. Anybody can want to look at it anytime. Can't always, you can look at it, but not necessarily adjust it. But financials, again, financials is another big one. You can see where that's tracking, how that's hitting the budget. So everything is transparent. Nothing is behind closed doors. You want to look at something, we'll open it for you. Trust is a huge factor for us. We know that it starts in that first meeting. we trust what you're telling us is true, and we need you to trust us the same way. As soon as that's lost, it's a whole different story. So we make sure that doesn't happen. That's why everything is an open door policy, open book policy. Everybody's welcome at any time on the job site. Ask any questions. We invite you on. All of our projects, whether it's a municipality or a private job, we invite all of the services on. Police, fire, municipalities come in, look at it, work with us. We want to understand what the concerns are, if we're building it right, or we have to make adjustments. That's important to us, that we know that you're getting what you need. And that's kind of how it.
Yeah, and I think back to the whole Procore thing, it's kind of a, now more than ever, it's starting to find itself as commonplace in the general contracting world. We obviously engage primarily as construction managers, so we do not have staff that performs any trade work. Our job is to manage the work through subcontractor agreements. What that does for us is it makes it so that we have a much more firm level of control over the project, opposed to if we're sitting there putting all of our own people on it. It might make you feel like you have a lot more control over it, but in reality, sometimes that's a significantly looser way to run a job. It doesn't necessarily allow you the same ability to hold people accountable. So if work does start to fall behind, there's really no backup plan if you have self-performed work like that. So the CM approach for us is very powerful, it's very strong. Procore in and of itself allows us to keep that approach on the document management side just as strong. It also grants us certain efficiencies, especially with Bob, because we know that we want this project to go as fast as it possibly can, and to be able to track things like submittals and procurement with dedicated workflows that actually send out notifications to everybody so that people know exactly where things are. It identifies who's responsible for what and when it's due, and when it's not due. You get a lot of annoying dings in the middle of the night on site. Most people come back to us and say, could you please turn off all the notifications? And we say, yeah. When you finish the submittals, you finish the RFIs. So it really gives us that level of control that we need as construction managers to make sure everything runs smoothly. And we've actually invested a lot of time and money. We've been on Procore, and I don't want to talk about Procore being the only way we do it, but it is a very, very good way of constructing. We've invested a lot of time and money to actually tailor this program to our organization. So a lot of other people are going to come out and say, yeah, we use Procore. They don't use it like we do. We are fully vertically integrated with Procore in every step of our organization. So it is ingrained in us, and we are not going away from it for quite some time.
And on top of that, kind of what Darryl alluded to earlier, even though he said he kind of transitions out of it, one of the things you get with a company like ours is principal involvement. He may go away, but he touches every job site. He's involved with it. He wants to, we'll talk every day. His office is right next to mine. We have meetings all the time to make sure he knows what's going on with all the projects. So whenever there's issues, Darryl's involved. He goes out to make sure that there aren't issues, but there is principal involvement in all of our projects, which is key.
Do you folks have any questions?
Yes.
Yes. I actually, the Procore thing was something I wanted to get a gauge as who had an understanding of it, but we'll start with open any questions. Go ahead, fire away.
Oh, I was going to talk about, we'd love to get to construction. We'd love for you to be able to get to Procore, but right now I don't think we really know what the public wants or will approve. We've gone, I think we've lacked, as you know, building committees change all the time. And I think we've gone down one path, and we've gone down another, then we've gone down another, and I think it's time that we need to focus, find out what do the people want, what will they approve, so we have a direction.
Can I address that? Would you
Sure.
mind? Because I was going to talk about community outreach, and it's somewhere, I almost went into it earlier in the presentation, but we waited. So that's a good question. So you are not alone in New Hampshire or northern New England to have a couple of failed, couple could be 2, could be 4, could be 10, whatever, a couple of failed, warrant articles. The problem is, once you've failed a couple of times, you kind of have that smell of taint of failure, And people tend to say stuff like, oh, these guys, here they come again, right? They're here to come again with that fire station. We said no already 3 times or twice or whatever. I'm going to try to be brief. So there's a couple things. I agree with you. So one of the things you can do up front, frankly, it doesn't involve any of us. You could do it on your own without us or any other architects. So of course, you'll hire us as your design build team, right? But is do a SurveyMonkey online, do an online survey, or do something that's printed. Every community's different. Get that feedback. Takes about a month. You got to put it out there, let it sit out there for a couple of weeks. If both towns, Northfield and Tilton, both have ability to do a spam email, a notification. I know my town I live in does that. My prior town, Atkinson, does that. I live in Londonderry, okay? They all do that. I don't know about you guys in Peterborough, but they all do it. Get the thing out, simple SurveyMonkey. You can pay a small fee to have the paid version, so you can do pie charts and all kinds of, and you can ask the questions about, what is important to them, what do they see the value of either a new fire station or updated fire station in case of a renovation addition, and really understand, ask about. I always say that a good survey should not be more than 10 questions, because people just get jaded. They don't want to answer it. They have about 5 minutes to do it, right? The other thing you can do, and again, this is regardless of who you hire as your team, is hold a couple of town meetings, or you've probably already done this, and really have an open discussion with people, ideally after you do the survey, so you know what people are telling you. On a SurveyMonkey survey, you like you to get 15% back, 1.5. Okay, if you get 15, you're doing good. As far as the community outreach is concerned, because I want to wrap it into the actual project, that's a thing that you mentioned in the RFP, and we believe very strongly in that. We believe, my personal lesson as the lead of our design group is that the best champions for the project are not the hired guns. It's the chief, his command staff. Those are the ones who are the ones that need to really verbalize, and the committee to verbalize the need. That has been the most successful. I went through 4 deliberative sessions in January and February. I was supposed to speak at all of them. I only spoke at 2. You know why? I was there. Because the chiefs did and the command staff did a great job. And 2 of those 4 passed. 2 did not pass by very small margins this week. So the other, just to be brief about it, is that once we come on board and we start to shape the project, this is after you've done some of your homework we're talking about, we're going to help you strategize what's the best way to reach your community. Every community is different. Some are very high tech, some are very low tech, some are somewhere in between. It's a matter of community meetings, getting the stuff out on the websites for the individual towns, or if you have a fire district website, putting it on there, putting stuff at the library, the town halls, the rec center, the senior center, getting the word out, and then having a series of presentations, much as you have right identified in the schedule, to get the word out. But one key thing that a lot of people don't do is create a committee, not your committee, a committee of both towns in this case, of champions that are going to be positive word getters in the community. People who are like, yeah, I think we need a new fire station, Daryl, and we really need it because, and those people are your ambassadors, and they're the ones who, it's word of mouth, it's at the transfer station, it's at the kids' school, and those champions are critical. Pardon me?
Barbecues.
The barbecues.
Mm-hmm.
Never underestimate that word of mouth being from a positive members of your community. And then the last but not least, as we get into the end of this schedule, so we finish our work by October, early November, and you have your package, you have the budget, you have everything, get it out everywhere you can. Town hall, library, community center, senior center, everywhere you can, on the websites, every website you can put it out in both towns, whatever, and then really drive home the message. We also have seen successful messaging with video interviews with your local cable station from the chiefs, and also a video tour of your facility to show that you don't have enough space, you don't have safe working conditions by current NFPA standards, whatever it is. In Exeter, both chiefs did a tour of their facility to get that word, and also in Bedford, to get their word across. That's a whole gamut, right?
I think, well, I'm speaking for myself, but I think when the committee was putting together the RFQ, because we sort of saying, well, how many do we need? And I forget, we might have put 5 in there, or 5 meetings. But I think we were thinking that the architect would be facilitating those meetings, because we're not in that trade. We don't know how to.
No, we can. We agree.
Or we at least need guidance.
Yes.
And so we had sort of developed a scope as a team, but not really knowing what we actually needed, but we wanted to be able to compare proposals, and we said, well, we want this many meetings, we want this, just so that we could compare apples and apples. Do you feel that we had I guess my question is, we had defined some things basically based on AIA 141. Were there things that we had in there that you thought might be in excess, or were there things we should have had, should not have had?
I think every community is different, you know, and I think that as you start to go through this process, when you select the team, you'll understand it, and we'll be able to determine what that actual need is. It could be more, because, you know, if it takes more meetings to get that word out, to get to the yes vote, then it will take more. And that's where we come into play to help do that. I think 12 meetings right now is fine. I mean, that could be run the gamut of design to outreach to all kinds of things. So
in a community, you have 4 or 5, but don't you misunderstand me. We're not telling you that we're going to give you something and go, okay, there, here it is. Go and sell it to the community. We're there to help you. I'm just being honest. Like I could tell a few minutes ago, we're not going to BS you guys. You know, what we find to be very good is, and very effective, is to have the design team, design build team in this case, be active in the selling of the project, but also having the actual stakeholders be critical players in that process. So I don't want you to misunderstand what we said.
No, so essentially right now what's happened is we had a committee that had determined we have 1 station over at Park Street. That changed because of things changing. We don't really know what the public would like, but we'd like to have some cost estimates to say, okay, we already had a focus on something. I assume you could probably give us a conceptual cost estimate fairly early in this process for that site.
correct.
Can you then give us a conceptual, well, we don't know what would be on the other site at this point. You'd have to work with us to evaluate, is there a better choice on another site? Am I saying that right, Chief? I think that's where you were headed.
We renovate the Park Street, we put something right here.
Or we put something.
Right. What's cost delta?
Right, I think the biggest
What's
thing
the
that
best way to
the
service the
committee,
community?
the biggest thing that the last building committee had issues with was when you have 2 fire stations, you have duplication of equipment, safety, right? And that sort, so we figured that was an expense that we didn't want. But can you have a building here and a building there and still make it work within budget? I don't know. And I guess that's what we need to go to the public to say, you need a number. We need numbers.
Right.
Because I don't think we can have any meetings until people say, well, is it 20 million or is it 5 million or is it, because that's the first question that comes up.
And I think going through the program that, you know, I'll be able to do may flush out which one is more efficient, and also is location, you know, do you need to have 2 stations because of response times? Or is it only 1 station? Can you get away with that? So that kind of information is important for the public to know too. Because you're not just doing it just to do it. You're doing it because response times will be quicker to get to people because you have to. Or those kind of information to the public is extremely important.
Is that part of your space? Like we have the chief's space needs that kind of gives us square footage, and I'm sure you've seen it. And you run a program, you said that, does that give you basically the square footage or it does?
Yeah. I have a sample, I can pass it around a little bit. I don't want to step on your time, but I can't leave it, but I can pass it around if you want. But the answer is yes. And
you can evaluate different, first you evaluate the needs, whether the station's over there, here, or 2 stations? Is that how it would go?
But when you get into splitting services, it's a whole different matter though, because, especially for fire, because a lot of small municipalities don't have multiple stations unless they have huge geographies they're covering and the heat map of service. What happens in a lot of communities that we're working with is their heat mapping has been changing because somebody builds 50 condo units or they build a new industrial park, and all of a sudden, where it was like totally blank, all of a sudden you're getting, heat map hits. But some of the smaller municipalities will have like an apparatus storage, basically a pre-engineered smaller building, where they keep apparatus, and they may have a volunteer or a full-time staff, they go to it, but then they have a main station. We'll be able to look at that as we go along, once we revisit the program and understand what it's telling us. And as you said, apparatus is expensive, so, some of these trucks cost a ton of money, no pun intended, so they weigh a ton too. So that's almost an operational decision that results in programming. You know what I'm saying? It's the other way around, right? So.
But ultimately,
It's really not
yeah.
apparatus.
It's not apparatus, we're more safety,
Yeah.
contamination.
Oh, you decon stuff, go ahead.
So, we have that mess where we have to decide what we're gonna do, and we need help getting to that decision. Other questions, so for you guys, what process did you go through to pick LaValle? And why did you pick him over any other architect?
So looking at the pool of architects that are familiar with municipal and safety, their resume is by far in excess on their experience. So we are absolutely comfortable with Bob's knowledge of the industry and its requirements, given that they are very specific. We've been working with LaValle for well over a decade on numerous types of projects. We actually just came off of about a $120 million job with them in Manchester for a DoD contractor. We've built a great working relationship with them. We understand their expectations, they understand ours. We've built a great basis of trust in how we do things. And for us, their expertise is by far tough to match.
Another question for Valley, I guess, would be design and construction of fire stations has changed over the past 10 years because of new requirements and what we're aware of, hazards and stuff like that. Do you go to any conferences or things to,
Yeah, I go to one almost every year, which is the firehouse design. It was in Chicago last year, St. Louis, but I also have done a lot of other research. If you look at my resume, I've got like well over a dozen current, more recent projects. Also in the package, I believe, Joe, because you included, was this document, which I recently wrote, kind of a white paper on that. I have extra copies if you need them. But yeah, I'm staying very current. And the other thing, quite frankly, you can go to every conference you want in the world, but how you really gain experience as a designer is by working with multiple departments, because your department is different than Exeter, is different department than Lincoln, is different department than Bedford, is different department than Lebanon, which we're doing right now. So every one of those has very similar tenants per NFPA, but they're all run differently, they're different scale, different sizes, and frankly, some of the chiefs and their command staffs have some different ideas, so they want things done. So I've learned as much from working with other departments as I learned by going to some conference, even though I've gone to them.
so I've talked to all those chiefs over the past few years, and I know them all pretty well now.
Yes.
In regards to subcontractors, you guys, your company basically subs everything out. So when you're deciding on a list of subcontractors, do we, the client, have any say in who you pick on that?
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah, if there's anybody you'd like to add to the list, or if there's anybody you've worked with in the past that you're not comfortable with, we're happy to adjust accordingly.
Those are the type of questions that I have,
Yeah.
because, we're familiar with the subcontractors around this area, and we know who are good and who are maybe not so good.
And that's helpful for us.
I was going to say, that's when we say collaborative. That's when, by all means, any information, ideas, that's why we picked Bob too, because they listen. It's not just their design, this is what we want. They sit there, they listen to what you need, and they design to that. So it truly is a team effort as far as when it comes to this. It's not just us building it. It's sitting and working together to make sure we're giving you and the community, if we're able to hire a local contractor because they're good, they're in the community here, and we can help them out too, then let's do that. And that's what makes it work.
We do work all over the state, so we're southern New Hampshire all the way up to North Conway. So we've also employed Building Connected, which is a bidding software that we have. It actually pulls a pool of pre-qualified subcontractors, primarily that we've gone through and filtered on our own based on our criteria. So that ranks them based off of safety ratings, based off OSHA.gov. That gives them BBB ratings. That also marks them as preferred based off of previous experience. Some projects we'll take the opportunity to put it out across all 16 divisions to about 700 plus subcontractors for bidding. So you do get the best bang for your buck with coverage like that. But it isn't just going out to the world and Joe Schmo, 2 guys in a pickup truck, yeah, he's going to build your building. Then it's going to be somebody who is qualified, insured, and has a proven track record of being able to put this kind of work in place. And more importantly, we lean on our relationships that we've built over the years with a lot of these subcontractors. And just like with Bob, it leads towards a very smooth project. It allows us to understand each other right out of the gate. But we also understand that projects like this also require tailored subcontractors, people who are experienced with these building systems, this construction type. So it allows us to kind of really filter down that subcontractor pool to people who we feel are appropriate. But you and your team have absolute control over who is selected for that job. So we would simply put it out to bid. We would level the bids. We would present them to you, or we can make the selection and provide it to you and say, our opinion is this subcontractor. So very open.
So one last question. So we decide what we want, we design it and stuff like that, and we have a set of plans in our hands. Would you guys be upset if we went out and had a consultant look at it to say, you might want to do this here because in our experience, this, have someone else look at the plans after you've done them?
Well, I think our goal is to be able to get through that process and get to that set of plans that you have in hand and have the confidence that you wouldn't need to do that. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, it's up to you. It's your call.
It's your call. I mean, that should really not happen at the end of the process because the dice are cast. It should happen somewhere during the process. And if that, I'm not sure we say consultant is another architectural firm or is it a operational consultant for fire like an MRI? We could bring an MRI on board now.
Not MRI.
Well, whatever. Somebody like an MRI.
We're not architectural, it'd probably be another architect that specializes in public safety, is what I had in mind. If, I saw that, maybe if I had questions, I put out something.
Well,
hopefully we would resolve that. Exactly. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to, I don't know everything, and I suspect that you won't claim to know everything, and if you have another set of eyes look at it, it might be a good idea.
It's up to you. I mean, I will tell you honestly that I did most recently on a much larger project than probably yours is going to be, which is all fire, with a chief that was a newer chief that I hadn't worked with before. We had some honest conversations about some ideas he had about warm, hot, cold zones and what he wanted, and in the end he saw we're going to have a lot of conversations. If you need to go to a third party, by all means do, but that means we haven't done our job. So I think we should be able to trust each other. And my staff, who actually didn't bring everybody, with like John and Dale and so on, we can have very honest conversations. Because if you say something about something you want in your building, which I know based on my experience, it's pretty extensive, doesn't work, I'll tell you. Just like if I do something that isn't good, you should tell us. Like I said, total honesty. We said that earlier. By all means, I'm not, but they're the lead, so I'm not opposed to it. But it shouldn't happen at the end when the drawings are done. It should happen much earlier than that.
Conceptual or
Yeah,
or 50% documents or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, it's like a peer review.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, we've done on many projects, so if that's what you feel to make yourself comfortable, then
Sure. By all means.
I had a quick question. I think that was probably, I saw it in your white paper, if that was included in the packet that you guys submitted.
Yeah, it looks like we got extra copies.
Zone design, you actually just mentioned that. And my question was going to be like, when you mention that, what does that entail? What does that mean and how does that affect?
Oh, God bless you for asking that question. I also have copies of this if you need extra copies, but I think you already have it. So when we design a station, right, and this is based on more current NFPA standards, as the chief said in the last 10 years, one of the biggest issues is the contamination. So if we were in like South Carolina, North Carolina, or Florida, or somewhere warmer, we would try to gross decon outside the bays, literally outside. We'd be able, the fire staff be able to hose themselves up, but here in the middle of winter, you're gonna freeze and die if you do that. So the idea is to separate hot zones where you're coming in from a call and your PPE is totally hot in your boots. And that goes for EMS ambulance people. Maybe they're in contact with fentanyl or they're contaminated with bodily fluids, and be able to decon that in the hot zone. In the warm zone, actually, what we're seeing a lot now is a transition from having, especially in smaller firehouses, rather than having the locker rooms traditionally and all the bathrooms. I'm not talking about bathroom use or bathroom, I mean like the showers and all that, lockers. They used to be by living quarters. When I got into this business, and I'm old, right? It used to be, that's how it used to be, especially in big cities, municipalities. And now what we're doing is we're providing that warm zone as a transition where people are stripping off their dirty PPE. You have extractors, commercial laundry equipment. You also might have, for example, very large stainless steel sinks where the EMS, the ambulance guys can wash stuff off. People don't think about it. But some of those things are the size of a, if you can think when your kids are in craft school, they're doing clay, big things where you can actually hose off their oxygen tanks and even the stretchers, Again, we're not in South Carolina, we can do it outside maybe 6 months a year, right? So you go into the locker room and you keep a set of clothing, and that's the warm zone, so you can shower off. Now we'll provide showers in the apparatus bays, like you do at a beach house, where you can just hose off, assuming that it's not 28 degrees in the bays once the door open in the middle of January. You can hose off there, take off the dirty stuff, be down to some underlayer, go into the locker room, shower off, have clean, like he's wearing a uniform now, like a polo shirt, pants. You have a clean uniform, you put it on, and then you go into the living quarters or sleeping quarters and the day room and the kitchen and all that, or the training room. So that there's a hot to warm to, you don't want those paths to cross. And the beauty of being a good designer for a firehouse is making sure they don't cross, right? That's a clean progression through, and frankly, on the way out as you're putting your PPE on and heading out to a call. Okay?
Right. And it's safe to say that was significantly impacted design.
Significantly.
Whether it's a redesign or a new design.
Significantly. And one of the things that's really helped that, I'm so now I feel like in one of these seminars that you mentioned earlier, one of the key things that we're seeing right now, which has helped with that, especially in a more rural environment, which we are in, is not having a 2 or 3 story fire station like we did in Quincy or in other places in Massachusetts, or frankly the one in Lebanon's the main one's going to be multiple stories because it's a tight site. So the ideal is to have a 1-story firehouse if you have the land. That makes that kind of planning a lot easier because you can control your traffic paths between the hot zone, the warm, and the cold, and then back out to your PPE.
Thank you.
We're pretty close to a seminar there, Steve. But that's true. The 1-story is a huge difference maker for that, if you have the land, which I think you do both places.
Does anybody else have any questions? We got about 7 minutes left before the end.
I've got a question, comment type of statement. One of the things that we struggle with here in our district is the diversity of the 2 towns, both from an economic standpoint as well as a need, a necessity. And that's one of the reasons why you see a high number of public community meetings, is because they're tired of listening to us. This is the 3rd time in the past 7 years, okay? They don't want to hear us anymore. We're trying to do what we're being guided as best for the community, as far as providing the equipment and the buildings and the firefighters, the keeping our finger on the pulse of the ability of the communities to pay, and also, as you guys stated earlier, and the chief has beat it into our heads, call volume and where those calls are. So because of the economic disparity of our 2 towns, you're going to hear different things from different people.
Sure.
Very diverse comments. We have people in town who think the Park Street station is fine. I had someone stand up at a meeting last week and say, other than the building being old, can somebody tell me what's wrong with the Tilton Fire Station? Have you guys been in that building? We gotta buy special equipment in order to fit it in the building, okay? 1847, okay? So that's why we're so focused on getting you guys involved in those community meetings. So my question is how do we tackle that? Or how would you tackle it?
I mean, honestly, Daryl, I would start with a survey to understand. Maybe you've already done this. We're here for the first time, right? We don't know what you've done or haven't, but then we know you had a couple of failed attempts, right? And we saw the documents you put online, by the way. Thanks for doing it. Those are helpful. But you started by gauging the, it doesn't cost much to do a Survey Monkey survey. And start with that and then have some open houses where maybe you aren't the front people. Maybe throw us to the lions out there first,
Yeah, back to your comment about our involvement in, you guys have been up there for long enough, and obviously this ties into what you've been saying, and it sounds like people don't want to hear it from you. We are more than willing to sit up on a committee and have a conversation and speak as the defined experts here to try to alleviate people's concerns. We have no problem doing that. I think the point is, with what Bob was saying, understanding the community's concerns. From that point on, then we can formulate a plan as how we want to approach that. If it's a financial disparagement, then that's where we start. If it is trying to qualify the needs and explaining, well, what does a new fire station benefit your community? How is it going to make your life better? How is it going to make your community safer and keep your neighbors safe? We can come up with a strategy to build a narrative around that. So really, it starts with asking a lot of questions, and that's kind of where the approach would begin.
And I think even just saying, this is what the requirements for was 15, 20 years ago, just on a overhead, you may have done already. This is what it is now. Look at the difference between what's going on here. This is why we don't, again, it's not just about want, it's a need. It's a requirement now by the NFPA that this happens.
So why is that a need? Safety. Why is safety necessary? Because the people that are servicing you, the resident, have to be safe and provide you with the necessary technology that's available today that we don't have necessarily today with that type of service. And if you can educate them via video, site visits, anything that's visual, they can touch, they can see it, but in the context, explain exactly what's different and why it's better. Then you sort of, real quick, I live in Brookline, New Hampshire. Years ago, we voted down a safety complex. Okay, I'm a resident. I'm also with Bert, if you're familiar with them. So involved with the first responders guys. So I saw the conditions the police and fire were dealing with, and I'm like, these guys, this is crazy. Just the police was in a basement, a building. They didn't have a retention cell, nothing. So I became kind of an advocate internally. Still, after a while, it took us, but it was more about one town and the budget and how do we contain the budget. But then it turned into, wait a minute, these guys aren't able to service this properly with conditions and the type of equipment they have now. So if you fix it now, it costs this much. You fix it here, it costs this much. It's going to have to happen eventually. That was part of the discussion, but it was more focused on what are we going to do today to help our community be more valuable, be safe.
So you know Charlie Corey?
Oh yeah, Charlie. Yeah.
So I can.
I know the whole Corey crew. Do you know Wes Whittier by any chance? Wes Whittier, do you remember Wes?
I know of him.
Wait, he's retired.
Yeah.
He's the one that started the bird thing.
I'm more familiar with Charlie.
Okay.
I called to him with him and his wife.
Yeah.
So.
I think
Yeah, I know the whole Corey family, they own Brookline.
to Bob's point is, if you can get a survey, you can understand, is it an emotional or is it a logical discussion? And that's when you'll be able to determine how to respond to people. Because if you don't know that, you're going to respond to a logical answer to an emotional one, it's never going to work. So that is a key to understand.
That survey, it's very brief, like I said, 10 questions or less, is to gauge what are the hot buttons of the community. And I think that people tend to be a lot more honest in a blind survey than they are going to be at the community meeting where you're looking at them face to face and they have to tell you that you're doing a crappy job, or they don't like you, or they're tired of hearing from you. They're not going to tell you that. But am I doing a blind survey? The other thing is, Kathy was, I think it was in the middle of, she kind of helps us craft the community messaging, which is very different in every community. Has a famous saying, when the those who they don't know, they vote no. So if they don't know a lot of things. They don't know what the value is to the community. They don't know what it's going to bring to the community.
Yeah.
They don't know about firefighter health, or in the case of a police facility, they don't understand that. So there has to be a value. If there's no perceived value, they're going to vote no. So if they don't know, they're going to vote no, right? And that's why you need the champions. Like you're a perfect example of a champion in your community where you live. You champion that project. You know,
They have to understand
So,
not
good
the value
example.
to them, but the value to the community and vice versa. So.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Of course.
Absolutely. If anybody wants I think it was in, I believe this was in everybody's packet, but I have extra copies if you want one. There's only 3 pages.
As many, we have it. I have it online, I can print it.
Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect.
Yes, thank you.
You got it.
Are we going to discuss, or do we need to do a recess?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hands are cold, it's too cold.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good game. Thank you. Yes, good game.
We won the game. Not
Say
kidding.
hi to Kathy.
I will. You know Captain?
Oh, I know very well. I worked with her when she worked at Trinity.
Oh, yeah. She's been with us 8.5
Thank you
years.
for your time.
I know.
Pleasure, Chief.
Take
Thank
care
you.
now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Chief, great to meet you.
Nice meeting you as well. Take care.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate the numbers out.
Okay. One, two, and
Crazy.
that is
No
four.
way you can pay that kind of money. Now they're trying to go backwards.
You want to just do a vote, everyone real fast?
I lived in Boston. We've been
Vote to
trying to do it for
recess?
5
Yep.
years.
All in
No,
favor?
that was the average.
Vote to recess, yes or no?
Yes.
Dennis, excuse me, vote to recess, yes or no? And then you can continue?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, because I'm
Sorry.
not. Thank you, folks. Thanks for the time.
Recess?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the March 16th building committee meeting is back in session. And welcome, gentlemen. This is a public hearing. We're all members of the building committee. I'll let everyone introduce themselves. My name is Paul Blaisdell.
I'm Tim Sattler.
Lisa Martin.
Mike Sita.
Dennis Manning.
Kevin Wolf. John Sutter.
Again, nice to meet you all.
Thank you for coming
Well,
today.
thank you for having us. Thank you for the invitation. It's greatly appreciated. So shall we get started?
Sure, absolutely.
Quick introduction. My name's Thomas Early. I go by the name of Tom. I'm Senior Vice President of Valero. I go a long way back here with Tony Page. Tony Page is our proposed project superintendent if we're selected to do this project and it passes. Tony's been working with me in the New Hampshire market for over 25 years. Jim Hardy is my senior project executive. I go back a long ways with Jim too. Before in our past together, we both worked for a company called Structure Tone out of Boston, Massachusetts. And when I went to Valero, I left Structure Tone for certain reasons, and I eventually, once I get myself settled at Valero, I coaxed Jim and I coaxed Tony to join me in our New Hampshire operations. And we got Bob Wiswatz, who's our project architect, who's got a lot of fire station experience. And I think the one thing I want to really stress, I think we did our homework, okay, and you know, we listened to the tapes that were available when people were reviewing their proposals from ourselves in Fulcrum, and I think there was some concern about us being based in Connecticut. And the only thing I want to say really quick is we're not based in Connecticut. Our corporate offices are. We are based in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We have a full operating, we have a 9,000 square foot facility over at Pease Air Force Base. We have our civil engineers working out in New Hampshire, structural engineers, electrical engineers, our own team. We have a team of project superintendents and other project managers. I mean, we're doing work right now at the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. We're doing work for BAE Systems. We're doing work at Dartmouth College up here in Hanover. So we come from a long history of New Hampshire. I was born and raised in Manchester, New Hampshire, and actually before Structure Tone, I owned my own company called Kelly Construction Company in Manchester. So Tony's a long time in New Hampshire, Jim's a long time in this area. So I just wanted to stress that if we're lucky enough to be selected by you, you're working with a New Hampshire team, not a Connecticut team, okay? And all our engineers all have New Hampshire licenses, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. One of the things that got me to go over to Laredo Engineering was it's a different organization and I've never been involved with before. We have the capabilities of doing everything under one roof. We have all our engineers under one roof, architects, all our personnel. So we can go to a customer and we can say, hey, we can do this design build project, and not only that, all my colleagues that I work with every day, our architects, our engineers, we all work together as a team. And by doing that, we can come up with very, very cost-effective proposals, and we've been very, very fortunate. Again, this is a few of the things that Laredo does, from building land engineering, facility engineering, environmental assessment, we do industrial services, of course, construction. We have our own laboratories. We have our own waste division. So we have a lot of good things under one roof, and we offer all these services here in New Hampshire. Bob, you're up.
Okay. One of the things that we noticed listening to your meetings videos, and thank you very much for posting those, was that you had some questions about what we didn't talk about. And what we didn't talk about in our qualifications were the individual rooms. We talked about them in one place, but we didn't show you the rooms. So what I wanted to do here was just say, one, that we're going to go through from the program that you posted a selection of those spaces and just say, okay, here is a room, it meets that function, this is how it meets that function. And then also, as you no doubt know, go back for a second. There you go, right. The building code is the international international building code and the international fire code. The fire code is NFP 1, I believe. The life safety code is NFP 101. I might have those reversed. And then there are a whole slew of other NFPA code standards, recommended practices. We'll mention just a few of those here, but also something that I found, I think that's 2016, 2018, an interesting little book put out by FEMA on recommendations for how a fire station should be designed from 2016. And it's got some nice pictures, so we can compare their pictures to our pictures. So they start with the site planning, which is also the apparatus phase, and they recommend a one-way through circulation, which, as an example of a fire, there we go. There's a one-way circulation on a fire station that we designed. That takes a bit of a deep site, so that as we talk about Park Street, if we were fortunate enough to work with you, there may be a challenge at Park Street, but we'll see. Park Avenue? Park Street. It's a little fancier, but that's okay. An apparatus bed, okay. Apparatus buildings can look pretty. We showed you pictures of very nice historic buildings and whatever on the outside in our walls, but the insides have to function. And they have to function with the ventilation, the exhaust ventilation for the trucks, with the floor drains, with the space in front of the trucks. You have to have at least 4 feet. And at the end, it has to work with the whole building. And then you see the exhaust. There's one of those historic buildings that we work the exhaust into too. It also has a pole, if you want a pole. But that's the way it was designed 100 years ago. Gear storage. FEMA says this is a good example of gear storage, and well, here we go. Now, here's an interesting thing. Okay, so this NFPA, 1851, ensembles, that's what they call gear. Ensembles, when not in use, shall not be exposed to light that emits UV rays, including but not limited to fluorescent lighting, direct sunlight, indirect sunlight. Now, that's a new standard as far as I can tell, but it's an interesting standard. I think these are LEDs, so they would be okay. Fluorescent wouldn't be okay. We wouldn't want windows on the gear. And that's so that the gear doesn't prematurely age. There's a very extensive set of protocols that have been set up for how you control contaminants in a firehouse. And basically go through, now you have a red zone, a yellow zone, and a green zone. Red is where your contaminants are, green is where people work and live, and the yellow is the buffer between them. That actually is new for NFPA in 2021. But it's been something that FEMA has thought about for a number of years. It shows up in their 2016 standard. But we were doing this before. So here is FEMA's diagram for a firehouse for, as of, say, 2016. And here's that same firehouse we showed you with essentially the same diagram. Now, the NFPA standards, even though the 2021, you will be working under the 2018 standards, which are your 2022 building code. So if we're working with you, we're working in advance of the standards that you have to meet. Gear storage. The more different storage rooms you can have, it's going to be better for your operations. Not all your program and your budget are going to determine how much you can have, but we have designed them with machinist room, EMS storage, hose storage, and I believe this is radio repair. The SCBA room, you can have a number of these, and like I said, the more you have, the better off you're going to be. You talk about mezzanine mechanical. This is showing you a non-fire, but a transit facility that we designed, which had that. It shows it more clearly. All the mechanical are up there. It's a good place to put it because it's out of the way, but it's reasonably accessible. Kitchen, the most important place for a lot of firemen is where they spend the time when they're not off duty, but they're not actively on the trucks. So whether it's the day room or whether it's the kitchen with all of the stainless steel equipment, a good sized stove, a good sized place for dining, and it's important, we want to make sure it's right. And if you go out that door, which swings in the direction of emergency travel, you're in the equipment bay, apparatus bay. Important thing is wellness. I don't remember which standard I saw it in, but again, the standard that came after we designed this room, here's what FEMA wants you to have: weights, and wants you to have universal machines, and well, this room has weights and universal machines, and has what they recommend, which is good windows from the outside, ideally windows that look onto the apron if you can, so you can see if the trucks are there or if they're about to leave without you. And importantly, the doors in, which isolate the room for sound, have windows. Not just a little window, but enough window that you feel safe inside, that somebody outside can be sure that things are going well inside. Or, you know, if you've collapsed, you want somebody to see, not to try to guess. Bunk rooms, dorm rooms. This happens to be an officer's room. This particular station distinguished between officers and enlisted men. I'm not sure what the term is, firemen, fire people. Energy conservation, important thing. You can do some easy things. A good window system, low E glass, argon filled, gives you a better, and of course, insulated glass, gives you better performance, and sealed well. But the shading, we lost the shading there, but the thought that you can keep the heat load, which is generally the bigger problem, okay, you saw it. There's in your program, Chief's Office, Code Enforcement, and Deputy Chief. So not in the station we've been showing you, but this had a fire chief, and in Connecticut you have a fire marshal in each town. And so a little suite of rooms like that. Clerk's office, which I'm not sure if that's a dispatch for you or not, wasn't quite sure what you meant, but there's a dispatch, and then here's the officer, the shift officer, commander's office, and then also his toilet. And finally, training community. Depending on how big you want it, a room like this, or a room that can take larger community groups if you want. And there are a couple of examples. And a kitchen. If you want a big enough community room, and you want perhaps a serving kitchen or a catering kitchen, so that food can be brought in, probably doesn't make sense to have one that you could cook all the food there. But a catering kitchen, which is basically a lot of warming tables and electrical outlets, does make a lot of sense. And then finally, you didn't mention, but generator, certainly you will need, and you may or may not want a fueling station. And with that, we'll turn it back to Tom.
All right. Letting the mouse go slide down. So ultimately, in the end of the day, we want to work with a company that wants to work with us. We want to strive to be the contractor of your choice all the time. We want to make sure we exceed your expectations in every aspect of this design in construction. Like my dad used to say, if you're not going to go to work and put in full effort, don't go in. And I feel the same way with everybody I work with. Like Tony, as a superintendent of mine, I'll show up on the job every day, whether it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 9 o'clock at night. If somebody's there and something needs to be done, if there's an issue, I'll make sure it's going to get responded to. You can check my references with people that I put my whole heart into the job, and I know that you do. I used to be a selectman in my town. I was on the permanent building committee. I know what it's like to go in front of townspeople and tell them that you're going to do something, and then you get a contractor that you can't handle and you can't control. We don't want to be like that. I've seen it on the other side. I know what you go to. I used to go to the grocery store, and I'd have 3 people telling me, oh, what's going on with this contractor, what's going on with this? How come you put this kind of money in this job? You're the face of the community for this project. And understanding that is a big part of what I bring to the job, and making sure that I come from a small town of Pepperell, Massachusetts, which is similar to Northfield. Everybody knows everybody, and everything that's going on, everybody knows about it. So I take it to heart and make sure that my clients understand that I'm there. I put 100% in all the time. So in the end of the day, when this job's done, I want you to come back and go, I don't want to do another job without Loretta. I want to make sure Jim Hardy's on that job, and this job's going to get done the way we want it done and expected it to be done. Tony, you want to run this? So Bob was talking a lot about NFPA and NEMA. This is a self-checklist that you can actually go in on your own and find it and the qualifications of building. At the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to build a fire station that you want. We don't want to build a fire station that we want. I might have completely different expectations of what you have. And I see a lot of times designers and architects and construction firms bring a project in and this is what we want to do. This is what we have in the grand scheme of things. They want to put their signature on it. Well, we want to put your signature on it, not ours. We want to build what you want to build. And we want to help you get to the finish line. Go to the bonding, make the people aware of it, and come through. So you go through the checklist, see what you need, and hopefully we can afford what you want, and basically get you what you need, and put some stuff on top of it. So I put through a schedule basically to get you through the pre-bond, get you from where you're at today, get an approval, move forward, start designing this, start looking at the documents, reviewing everything that you have now, get a
report back to you, meet with you, go over the report, see what the findings are, and then start to get your assessment of your project, what you're gonna want for your fire station and the program needs to design this thing. I'll work with Bob, go through everything, attend a lot of the meetings, make sure everything's here. I put in different color, I blew this up because it's kind of hard to see there, so I did blow it up on your separate handout, just to show you that, you know, the meetings that you need for the public awareness, the fire commission, the building committee, and your fire department, your guys that are there, understanding what everybody wants, and then coming back with you and meeting with you before we go forward and talk to somebody else. I see so many times in the project that, well, they just have a meeting and then all of a sudden everybody get stuff and you get everything the day of the meeting and like, well, we didn't want this, we didn't talk about that. We want to make sure that everything's communicated through you. We work for you. We don't work for the people outside of the town. We'll help them get there, but it's going to be your message that we send to them. You know, so that's, to me, that's important. And I broke it down from the pre-approval to the post-bond schedule. So the post-bond schedule, once you get through approval, and we're going to get to the end with the 13-month construction schedule at the end to build the building. So I think it's reasonable to, from shovels in the ground to FF&E complete, to have a 13-month construction schedule with a month at the end to close it out. No, there's nothing worse than having a punch list that's a mile and a half long. I've seen them. I've had to go in and clean up other people's punch lists. When you get done with the job, it should be done complete as you expected it, not as we think you want it. You know, it's going to be complete. The punch list should be minimal. The time you walk out the door, we want you to turn it over, enjoy your building, have a grand opening ceremony with everybody, and you know, it's a building as expected. Not people walking around, oh, they got to fix this and they got to fix that. When the building's done, it should be done. So talking about the grand opening, and you know, you're going to spend all this time, and I know you all have homes and families and other jobs, and you're working. So it's a celebration at the end. You know, it's a dedication of your time getting to the end line. So we did one similar to hose breaking ceremony rather than ribbon cutting. You know, we take the fire hose across the door, you unhook it, and everybody walks through. And it's kind of a nice little ceremony. You know, talking about, you know, the entrance into the building, the American flag. I know firefighters, 9/11. I know a lot of my friends are great firefighters from Pepperell, and volunteers, and some full-time guys. But it's an honor to walk in the building and understand that you treat that as your home, and it's an extenuation of you. So put that grand entrance coming in. You understand it. They understand it. That it means more than you, more than a building to you. It's your home. It's your fire, part of you. So we hope to look forward to working with you. And I can say for myself, I'm excited about this project. So I know Tom, Bob, and Tony are. I can tell you are. You're still here. You're on the committee still. It's a big investment. So I hope to not just build a building, but build a relationship. And I have clients that I still talk to. I have some that my daughter's a captain in the U.S. Army Med Corps, and I had a client send 35 packages overseas to her guys that worked under her, just because the relationship you build. It's not about today and tomorrow. It's about looking down the road and understanding that, you know, we're building a building and we're building a bond. We have to work together, and we're going to get to know each other through this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Tom and I both thank you very much, and any questions, welcome.
Sure. Community involvement is going to be a big part of this project, and we've struggled with that in the past, and so I guess my thoughts are is that we'd be looking for your guidance and your, maybe possibly you facilitating those community meetings so that we can get input from the public. How would you go about that?
I'll definitely be there. So I had a project, there was a school, $26 million project that failed 4 times. Someone else, we got involved, and it was about the people in the school department wanted what they wanted and didn't really care about the people on the outside. So what I did is I got involved and went out and we talked to the Boy Scouts. So you need another meeting room, you need something that can help you, that's not going to hurt the budget, that we can all, like a room like this, they can come and have some meetings in there. Talk to the seniors. The seniors were voting it down all the time because they didn't have, well, same thing, when you get some computers in here, you know, you bring your laptop in, we'll have somebody come in, help them working with, you make the community building. Oftentimes you have a public project with the outside sees, oh, they want this, they want this, they want this, and all they get is, it's going up in price. We're getting nothing other than a fire station for it, and it's all their high demand, so what you want to do is involve the community as much as you can. I'll definitely be there. I was a selectman in my town. I was on a permanent building committee. I built 4 buildings in the town that failed previously for me getting there. In 3 years, we built them all. So I think it's about understanding what your community wants and understanding what they're willing to pay. It's a big part, especially with the environment right now, right? Inflation's what it is, and without an understanding of what everybody in the community is going through, it's going to be hard for you to push this through without having their input and approval. Before you get there, you can't wait till the bond day and expect everybody's going to vote for it. It's not going to pass. You've got to understand them, and they've got to understand you and educate them to what you're doing here. And you're doing the best thing for them in the budget of the town. Everybody's taxes are going to go up for the station. So helping them understand what they're going to get and what it can do for them is a big part of this project. It's probably the biggest part of this project. Building the building's nothing. It's getting the thing to pass. Anybody can build a building.
If I could ask a related question, since we're sitting in a new comparable facility for the police, how many times did it take to get this approved, and what made it once?
Well,
A little different dynamic.
yeah, it's a different dynamic. This is a district of 2 towns. This police station is the town of Tilton.
You have to remember that the fire district
Yeah.
is 2
Right, 2 towns.
totally different towns in different counties with different demographics.
In different pockets too.
Yes.
I mean, I understand Tilton is, you know, I have friends who own houses on the lake, right? So there's a lot of summer people up here, and there's Northfield is very similar to the town I grew up in, Pepperell, Massachusetts. You could drive through the town and think you're in the same town. Very conservative, blue collar, and you know, very, 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 very tight on their money, and making sure they get the best for the dollar. And it's true New Hampshire residents. That's what they want. They're willing to pay for it, but they want to make sure they're getting the best deal they can get, and they're not wasting money.
And the other issue too, right, is with Tilton, there's a lot of people that are from out of state, right, that come up here during the summer months and stuff, but they're not going to drive all the way up here to vote at a town meeting.
Correct.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we have a pretty good, what is it, about 3,800 sedentary.
It's almost 4,000.
Yeah, we're about 4,000. I mean, Northfield has a little bit more, but no, the transient community that you're speaking about is not necessarily, they're not the voting population. I mean, Northfield has a higher voting population than does Tilton.
Yep.
But we have, with the dynamics, we have, Northfield is pretty much 90% residential taxes. Tilton has about 67% commercial. So you have that disparity there. You have sets of different, I mean, there's different values, how, you know, money values, fire district values.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that's the dilemma. I mean, this is not our first rodeo trying to get a building on here. Devin and I were having a conversation earlier about, you know, call data, response times, and things of that nature, you know, as opposed to, you know, what we have for existing buildings where we want to build it. So that dynamic has been a tough nut to crack, just so you all know, and it is a tough nut to crack.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Hence the number of public meetings that we're inviting you to join in on, because we're, in general, the building committee, doesn't matter who's on it, is getting tuned out. So we need assistance in that and getting us tuned back in.
And going back to what Jim said, it's not just Jim that's going to be here with these things. I'm going to be here myself, and so is Tony. We'll attend every single meeting that you people ask us to attend to. I don't care if it's 20 of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think 5's enough.
No.
It's definitely not enough for public awareness. I left 100 days at the end of the getting ready for pre-bond at the first schedule for just having meetings through the summer, making people aware. Call different leaders of different community groups and have one-to-ones with them. Don't just have an open meeting, because you get in a big open meeting and half the people don't want to talk because they think I'm not smart enough to talk about what I want to talk about. So you get them in a one-to-one or a smaller group, and they're more likely to talk and tell you what they want and feel like you're embracing them rather than giving them what you want.
And the other point, Jimmy, is the people that are going to be voting for this, right? They want to know that we care. They want to know that the person that you hire cares. We got this coming up here to build a building and make a profit. We care about the community, we care. And if we're showing up at every one of these meetings and they keep seeing our faces there, I mean, that means a lot. And we're putting in, we're committing to right now that we'll attend as many meetings as you want us to. And myself personally as well. I mean, that's what we're here, like you talked about before. We're not here to build a building and make a profit. We're here to build a building, be proud of it, be part of the community, and when we're done with this building, we want to say, somebody comes up to you and say, hey, who built this? Would you recommend them? Of course, that's what it's all about. I know Jim brought up in the past, and we built the Hudson Fire Station a short time ago, and Rob Buxton now was head of Homeland Security. I mean, ask him how many times I was there. Jim was always there, but ask him how many times I was there.
I did.
I did. And I was there, and I walked with him a lot of times. I mean, he's a great guy. But we walked out of there, and I think at the end, I mean, he got a lot more than what he asked for, too. Remember, we paved the road?
We paved the road behind him, yeah.
Jim was plowing the next door neighbor's driveways. There was elderly people around the fire station. He would plow their lot and go plow their driveways just to keep everybody happy. We paved that road, right, to that.
Well, it's funny you say that, John, Mike, because in the beginning, that was the big concern about this fire station, was that the neighbor was all against the fire station, and didn't want them there, and then, in the end, the guy was over there having the barbecues with him on the back, cooking there. It became more than just neighbors.
Yeah,
the interaction.
remember the neighbor, his fence was tipping down, our superintendent went over and fixed his fence. We didn't ask him, he goes, hey, you got somebody over here, can you fix the fence? Come on, fix your fence. I mean, at the end, remember the grand opening, all those neighbors were coming over, and
I was the site superintendent on that project, and there was several elderly neighbors, and one of them in particular right behind. I talked to him shortly, once we started breaking ground, we had equipment out there, we're making a lot of noise, right? And his name was Fred, and I said, I understand that there was maybe some concern you wouldn't like this fire station being right. He said, are you kidding? He said, I'm 76 years old. Who wouldn't want a fire station right next door at my age? He said, if I have trouble, I know, the response time is like that. So, yeah, we actually interacted quite a bit with several of the neighbors. There was I don't know, the technical or the politically correct
55 plus in a retirement home. And
a nursing home basically right across the street. There was some concern with them as well. And we'd go over there several times, not every week, but probably every couple of weeks, just to say, hey, you okay with what we're doing here? Anything we can do to help? Anything we're doing that's annoying you? If there is, let us know. We'll stop, we'll alter, we'll do whatever we need to do, to kind of keep things going. And yeah, we had a pretty good relationship with the whole neighborhood right there.
Yeah, and to Tony's point, that by us going out and being proactive and taking care of issues before they happen, it makes your life so much easier. We can get yelled at once, right? Hey, but if it keeps happening, they're just going to call you and you're going to get annoyed, and we're going to have meetings about what happened and why this happened. So, short circuiting things up front, it's such a better way to do things. Communicate, be open, be honest, and things will go good.
Can you describe your approach in performing a space needs study?
Well,
How do you, you sort of touched on it.
Right, I mean, basically, we're going to be talking with, okay, so there are two things. One is, what does the community want? Those are probably not a high percentage of what you need, but it's really talking with you. Now, somebody put a lot of effort into putting a program together that may be more than you need, or maybe exactly what you need. So it's talking with as many, certainly of the professional staff, certainly the chief, of what you need space by space. I mean, some things are easy. You've got a shift that's so big, okay, that's how many dorm rooms you need. Are your officers treated differently than a firefighter? Do you want them to have a separate area? Do you want them to live together? Do you want them to live separately? I mean, we had designed one firehouse that literally there were two sets of bathrooms, one for the officers and one for the firefighters. That might not work here, but but it's not what we want. It's what you want. So it's talking And you, as the committee, would guide us certainly, say, who should we talk to? Well, you should talk to the chief, and you should talk to these 3 firefighters, and you should talk to the 2 of us who are civilians. And together, we can go through space by space. And then it's really an iterative process, because it's like, right now, you have a program that's 20,000 square feet. Okay, and for that, we could probably think of a few things in there. And I remember you had apparatus bays that were perhaps wider than we would have recommended. You may have a reason for that. Or it may have been, no, we think that's a good idea. But that space costs you something. So we would be working back and forth with you, and then it comes up to a number. We have a wonderful team. The team will be able to say, we haven't designed it yet, but this will cost somewhere in the order of X to Y. And you will say, we think we can get that approved. Or you'll say, no, we're going to have to make some harder choices. And those are ultimately your choices. We can maybe direct you, but ultimately, it's what do you want in the building?
On that 20,000 square foot, that's a big fire station. So I'm not sure where you come up with that number in the documents, but most of them we build are
8 to 10 to 12,000.
Yeah, 10, 12, somewhere in that area. So we definitely need to look at your space needs and find out why the 20,000 square feet. Maybe it was a big community room for something, but we just, without having a floor plan saying where the 20,000 square feet went, it's a lot of space for a fire department.
But you've done a very good starting point, because now you've got a checklist and you can cross-check it.
Originally,
20,000 square feet in some of your documents?
It was in the documentation somewhere, I was seeing that.
Yeah, one of the ones you have online.
It's in
it's in
the RFOs, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's in the documents available somewhere.
I was reading that stuff. I was catching up.
Along with the architect too, Lisa, I've been involved in over 30 fire stations. So when you build them and you're there every day and you see them go up, you learn a lot about fire stations. You learn a lot what's important to firefighters and to the whole fire team. And Jim's got a lot of experience as well. When we're at these meetings, for the planning meetings with Bob, we're going to be there as well. And we have a lot of input. We've seen what works. We've seen some things that haven't worked, that sometimes the town pushed, no, I want this, and they want this, and they wish later they haven't. I mean, remember the meetings we had with Rob Buxton, I mean, we gave them some pretty good ideas on what to do, and the advice that we gave them was from our past history. So we built places like this, many, many, many times, and most of them in the New Hampshire markets. So.
I'll give you an example. This team was on an interview last week, coincidentally, for another fire station. It was very nice. And one of the things in their list of all the things that they wanted was they talked about bifold doors for the apparatus. I never heard of that, so I looked up. And in fact, one of those pictures that we showed is a side folding door. And they actually save maybe 20 seconds in opening time, so 20 seconds, and I don't remember the exact number, in response time. And that's important. They also take up another 4 feet of apparatus space. So you're trading off one versus the other. And, we were all saying, we've never seen one in New England. And it may be because we have a lot of weather like what we have outside. But they work very well in the Sun Belt. So.
This fire station's around to have
Yeah.
Laconia has them.
And how do they work?
So they work fine. The big thing with bifold doors is the initial outlay is a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the structure to support them.
Right.
Because they're heavier. Their cycling maintenance costs are a lot less than overhead doors.
Okay.
They open and close faster.
So you got heat loss and everything is much better too, so, yeah.
Yeah, so you still have to have, radiant floor heating, and usually you have to have unit heaters to make up the air when the doors open and trucks take off and suck all the air out of the building. You still have to keep it warm. But with the bifold doors, it's less time that the doors are open.
Right. So, it's again, that.
So you have to look at the initial cost, the lifetime of the building, where you're going to reach a balancing point where is it worth it or not.
Mm-hmm. And you bring up a good point about maintenance too. Because I built a fire station in Mass that was 8 bays. It was a big fire station. And they didn't have the budget to maintain this building the way it needed to be. So we cut some of the finishes inside, we put variegated paint with block walls, and made it so the maintenance was very, very minimal because of some of the changes that we helped them make along the way to say, hey, all right, you have this nice building, what's it gonna look like in 5 years? Well, if it's all sheetrock, and it's not gonna look very nice. So took that, put FRP in the wash base, they can wash it down while getting the sheetrock, and the block walls all dirty all the time. So easy maintenance is a big part of what we'll bring to the table too.
Sure, durable services are more important than price.
Absolutely, yeah. There will be some places that you want sheetrock, like in the bedrooms, so it's a little more comfortable, but given the main areas, you want more durable finishes.
The original RFQ was geared towards Park Street, want a single station. That kind of changed, well, we kept it this way so that we would be able to compare apples and apples and select a consultant contractor team or design build team. We're now, the thought has been to look at a different site. So would you be able to, obviously you could probably cost out something at Park Street fairly quickly if you knew the square footage, or not?
Yes.
And then what we're going to need to do is, cost is a big thing, and we're going to need to look at the other site also, so that we can get feedback from voters or even the chief and the staff of what is the best scenario.
So
Is it over here? Is it 2 stations? Is it 1?
So I think the right response to that is first understand your program, understand what your needs are, and then look and see what will fit on that site or what the other site is and where it's located and what it's going to cost to develop that site. You know, I heard something around this area before when it was originally talked about, so without being too...
So will we do that early in the process?
I think you need to look at your program first and understand what your square footage is going to be, and then find the site. I was on a program one time where they wanted to rush it through, and I said, stop. We're just trying to develop a building where we're coming to a point where the architect was rushing to get it submitted to the SBA. So I said, the biggest problem with what we're doing is we're rushing the system for somebody's benefit, other than the people that are going to be stuck with the building at the end. To get it in, and we're going to have change orders after change order because the drawing's going to be horrible, the documents are going to be something that we have to live with, and we're going to be fighting with this client forever. So let's just, everybody slow down, understand what we need to build, where we want to put it, how we want to go about it, get the right documents and submit it at a later date, and do it the right way. So, and that's going to come back to lots of people in the community. So if you put one phase in front of the other phase and don't do your job, the community's going to be back at you. That's where you're going to lose people saying, well, they're not doing what they said they're going to do. They're just going to go out and they're going to move along. So following the process is probably the easiest thing. Understand what you want for a building, square footage, what you want to put in your program, and then find a spot to put it. And if the Park Street station doesn't work, we'll tell you, hey, this is a better spot over here, and what is it going to cost you to do that? We'll evaluate that and tell you.
I think that from just a very quick, and we don't believe we have a survey for Park Street, I don't believe we were given that. One of the biggest things is if you want the drive-through organization, which certainly makes sense, it's probably going to be very tight on that site, because I have a feeling that between wetlands and the street, there may not be enough room for that. But I don't know that for a fact until I actually have a dimensioned plan.
So again, to answer your question, yes, we can do that.
Yes.
We have enough knowledge in our brains to be able to come up, and I know what you're looking for. You're looking for some hypotheticals in case you got to look at apples to apples. And Jimmy, I know what you need. We can do it.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely can be done. You want to.
Because I think that's what the public is going to want to hear.
You're going to want to know dollars at both sites, because they're all about their wallet first.
Yes.
So that if you can't meet the wallet.
I'm the same way. my wife goes grocery shopping and she comes home, how much is that? You want to know. You work hard for your money. You don't want to just throw it away. You understand what you're paying for.
But the answer is, Lisa, the answer is yes. Yes, we will be able to do that.
Do you consider, I mean, we kind of threw a schedule with that, or we kind of threw a schedule in there do you consider this an aggressive schedule?
No.
I laid out the schedule in the pre and post bond, which there's a lot of time in there to get you to the bond. And, you know, it only comes up in March, right? I don't know, can you have a special town meeting to go for that? So
Have to go to district court, the Superior Court, and get permission to do that.
Yeah, so
That's
it's not
not
worth-
likely, because
It's-
that in New Hampshire, there has to be an emergency. And
Like
this
a
is not an
snowstorm, like a
emergency,
snowstorm on Tuesday, something.
No, so it's either,
Yeah.
this type of vote would be taking place at the annual district meeting in March.
yeah, so yeah, and I think if you look at the schedule, and things will change in that schedule as far as when the meetings are, as far as when you want to see people. So, but we want to make sure that you saw that where they were in the phasing that they go through, and who's going to look at it and approval. And ultimately, it comes back to the last person that reviews it before you go anywhere else is the building committee. And with all the input from all the other the people that we've talked to along the way.
And let me just say it a slightly different way. If you hadn't had a schedule in there and we put it together, it wouldn't be significantly different than what we're giving you here. Probably would be exactly the same as that.
And I did take the dates that you had, looking at the bond date, and then working it back from the bond date to approval, getting all the documents in place and shovels in the ground for, this time in 2025. So it makes sense logically. Again, I always say make sure your construction documents are solid, because you don't want to pay change orders just because you're an oversight. Review them, take as much time reviewing and making sure that what you want before we go out to bid with it. It'll be a better project. Change orders will be minimal, and the construction schedule will go right along.
Look at Hudson, right? He ended up with $300,000 to spend at the end.
Yeah, you give money
I
back.
gave him everything he wanted, and he had $300,000 to spend. And he spent it because he couldn't give it back to the town because he was taking and do something else, but he used the money. But I mean, that's amazing what we pulled off over there. And we've done that before too. And then even if like you're talking about maybe a couple of cost alternatives, we will list this out on a poster board and stuff. And so the ordinary town person can come in and go, okay, this is option A, this is option B. We have draftsmen that work in our office that that can come up with some sketches, individual sketches showing a floor plan, and we can do an initial budget for each one of them. I mean, something that people can see. And, put it on an easel board or whatever. When they come in, they go, okay, we have this option and we have this option. And show it. I mean, we're capable of doing that.
So most of your disciplines are under one roof, and when you say go to bid, you're talking mainly for
Subcontractors.
subcontractors for materials and
Yes.
certain.
Yeah, electrical, drywall, framing steel, that's what
Right.
we meant.
So your GC bid,
We welcome you to say, hey, we've used Charlie in the past too, we use this guy. We do a background on, because I think we have to make sure everybody's fiscally responsible. The worst thing you want to do is start a job and then have some subcontractor getting stuck, and you gotta, get a change order to pay that guy that didn't work, right? So we want to make sure that if you have people that you've worked with in the past, we include them in the bidding. Hey, here's the proposals. We've done it with guys in the past, and they not every time did they pick the low guy, but they picked the local guy, because the local guy is going to give back to the community. So sometimes you pay a little bit more, and sometimes you pay a little bit less. But we'll tell you, hey, these are 5 contractors we're going to go up to. If you have any problem with these, maybe you did work with them in the past and you're not happy with them. So hey, you don't want that guy around. You don't have a good history with that.
So you give us a say in.
Yeah, we'll give you a list of subcontractors, absolutely. And then we welcome input from you guys and additional guys.
And the main thing too, right, we're a legitimate company, right? So we want to make sure that the subs work for us, have the proper insurances, and have an account with a little bit of money in it, and not living week to week. And there is some subcontractors out there that act like that, but we have insurance minimums. You want to make sure that the people that are working on your property have the proper workman's compensation, they have the liability insurance, they have automobile insurance. We make sure we cover that, but I'm sure a lot of the good subcontractors, the people that are local here, they know that. They know the rules. They know they have to have the right insurance.
Yes.
Yeah, as a district would require.
We require that.
And
Any contractor we have goes through Primex, they review it for liability issues, that includes all the things we're talking about. And then the contract goes to our local council for him to review, to scrutinize it even further. So
We've been involved in some projects that, they want to, we don't want you to do the painting. We want to have my uncle come in and paint the walls. I mean, you know, stuff like that, you guys try to stay away from. Or, you know, can you give us some credit if my uncle comes in and tapes these walls? And, you know, that's stuff you don't want to get into, but, you know, bona fide subcontractors that you know, I mean, we do it all the time.
Yeah, we just do reference checks on them, like you would do with us, make sure, because, like I said, I don't want to say I'm too strong on the job, but if I see things aren't right, I have no problem telling you, fix it. I don't want it looking like that when we're done, and I would do the same thing if you bring us a contractor. He's going to expect the same thing from us, that, you know, it's going to be right when you leave, because we don't want to turn it over that way. So.
We had followed AIA 141. Is that what you generally would use for design build, or do you have another contract?
We used it. You know what we're using right now, and it's a little bit different right now. We strive on honesty and integrity, and then right now we've been using the A134 contract for open book concept. It's an open book. It's fixed general admissions cost, general administration costs, like for our superintendent, our project manager, job trailer, template. And then we have a fixed fee. And everything else is all shut. You see everything. We have leveling sheets on all the subcontractors, okay? Let's just say we get 5 drywall numbers, 5 painting numbers. We do leveling sheets. We make sure that the whole scope is included. Then we sit down with you people in the room and we make a decision together who we're going to work with, what's the benefit of working with this person. We're doing that on a couple of car dealerships. We're doing it, I mean, the owners are really, really opening up their eyes to it, because you see every penny, the accounting effort, everything. You see for every wire nut, for electric, everything is costed. And then you know up front what it's going to cost. And if we can generate cost savings after the bid process is done, we give 100% of those savings back to you. I mean, if it's something you want to consider down the road, I have a sample of that contract in my office. It's been taking off pretty well, and everybody's talked about open book. There is a lot of open book methods, but this is an AIA, and it is the AIA 134, and it's got all the other portions of an AIA document that goes into that, supplemental conditions, all that stuff. But I can send you a draft. I mean, it's something, and it's all honesty. You see everything. It's your money anyways, right? I mean, that's the most important thing.
Let me suggest that there may be a more general aspect to your question, and that's that the AIA contract system, 34, 141, whatever, is a coordinated, legally consistent, easily enforceable, not just legally, but on the job site, set of documents. It works well. So you're well.
Yeah, no, most town attorneys prefer the AIA anyways. I mean, it protects you. It protects everybody.
Yeah, that's why we picked that on our RFQ, so that we could kind of compare and give a scope that was aligned with that. Now, I don't know what the 134 has, but I assume it's similar. Or
It's
are
very
you going to
similar.
develop a scope?
Except there's a lot more options for you as the client to be able to make choices.
Actually, if you talk to Rob used that, I believe. Was that one?
No.
No.
It was too far along. He liked the idea, but it was too far along.
So we did a modified thing.
Yeah, we did a not to exceed.
All right.
We did a construction CM not to exceed.
But it wasn't much different than what we're talking about.
No.
He picked the subs.
GM.
Yeah, we shared a lot with
With
them.
a GMP or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because that's the most important thing. An
Correct.
open book is open book. But, you know,
Right.
we can do an open book with a guaranteed maximum price.
So we had asked for a fee, and really the reason for the fee in the RFQ was to be able to compare, so that we could say, okay, you know, but what we asked for was just 1 straight %, which is hard probably for you.
It was very hard for us to do.
I knew that, but it was what was decided in the building committee, and we said, well, whatever, we can compare apples and apples, and once you've selected the design builder, you know, you're going to look at the contract, and you're going to look at the fee, and you're going to look at the scope even more definitive than the RFQ, because we're already throwing another site at you or this and that. So you're open to that, using a different form and defining things.
Absolutely. And that fee we gave is negotiable too. I mean,
For that
we
reason.
work together as a team. We're gonna figure out what you can afford, and we're gonna try to give you everything you can, and then at the fee, we'll talk about the fee. It's not gonna go over what we submitted, it's gonna go under, and we'll negotiate that. You got my word on that.
But we had the same issue, we were trying to figure out what, because you're talking design, construction, you know, is everything bundled into one, and it was like, when do we come up with a number? We've never done that, so it was hard to put a number to that.
But again, that's all open to conversation, so.
I've got a question for Bob. So the architectural firm, there's two people listed in the proposal. One is yourself and the other is Ronald Null.
He's my boss.
He's your boss.
He's a principal, my
But
boss.
you're before him in the,
Isn't that an amazing thing? We work well together. Because the architect and the project manager traditionally lead the team. I'm not the project manager on this, but the architect traditionally leads the team.
so who would be the person, the point person on this project from an architectural?
I would be.
Okay. Thank you.
If you're not happy
We
with
show
me,
Ron Knoll because he's the principal of the firm.
Okay.
Just so you know,
he would have been here, but he's on a business trip.
and just so you know, just a little bit of advice, our Connecticut operations and Luke's engineering at the college, we're merging. We're in the process now of being under the same roof as well. So that process is ongoing. It's going on with the banks and the lawyers and all that stuff. But we have a strong history with them.
This is the toughest
If
question.
there's ever a reason that you need to call somebody, I have my phone on 24/7.
So is mine, Jim.
The reason I asked that, Bob, was because the level of experience was a little bit divergent, especially with respect to the previous experience on fire stations. So I just wanted to find out who was going to be.
Well, he's overseen a lot, but I'm the one that's actually designing and programming and detailing and CAing and all those things.
Mhm. What type of software do you use for the design?
AutoCAD. And I believe our engineers are on Revit, is that correct?
Yeah.
So this, as you realize, right, Bob's handling the architectural portion of the project. All the other engineering services are all through Aurora. All our structural, our MEP, our civil, it's all through Aurora. And we use AutoCAD and Revit.
But is Bob designing it, or are you?
Yeah, he's designing the architecture, he's designing the building,
That's,
but like the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, that's all being designed through Aurora Engineering, our engineering division.
I'm sorry, you got to explain that to me.
So normally, on a traditional project, you would hire an architect. The architect would hire engineers, all the technical expertise.
Structural, mechanical,
Right.
civil.
You would come up with a set of bid drawings, you would put it out to bid, this is a public project, put it out to bid, and then you would get a CM or a contractor to do it. You've asked for a different sort of organization, where you've got a design-build team. The design-build team has come with all of those engineers and an architect to you.
So all the subsystems would be designed by Lorero.
But the crucial thing
Fully
is,
coordinating.
I'm
with Bob
coordinating.
all the time. He's coordinating the whole thing. So in other words, instead of him going out to an outside structural steel firm or an outside MEP engineer, we already have all those services in-house. He's coordinating everything with our engineers.
So it's the same thing, it's the same thing, I guess that's the
So
easiest
we
thing.
worked for them in the past, they'd be the architect, and they just hire our engineering firm to do exactly what we're gonna do here. And then we sub it up, they go out to bid, and then someone gets it and they work with the team. So it's no different than what you traditionally do, it's just the fact that we as a firm already have for 25 years an engineering firm that is in-house.
See, it's one thing that's what intrigued me to come here, was that we offer all these services under one roof. We have other architects that work for Lorero as well. We're working with Bob because Bob has the fire station experience. But when you traditionally have all these engineers and all these people under one roof, the savings are gonna show in the long run. You're dealing with really one company, you're not dealing with an architect and his consultants on the other side, they're all separate. This is everybody under one roof. And we all work in the same offices right next to each other. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, if I want to have a question on structural, I don't have to pick up my structural engineer. I walk right down the office and talk to them, right? He works for us. We're all under one roof. But it's something different. There's not a lot of companies in New Hampshire that do what we do. If anything, I think we're the only one. I think Procon has an architectural division, but they don't have engineers, electrical engineers. We have everything in the one roof. I mean, it's a great concept, and I love it. And then we're proving it to a lot of people that, wow, I mean, if they go out and they hire an architect, and that architect submits all his consultant's fees and it all lays out, and we submit one fee that shows everything, we're always low. We're always low. And it's because we're all working together on the one roof.
Well, that's my biggest point. You talk about team construction. It is no better team than that when you're writing, like Tom said, you walk down the hallway and, hey, Tony's got an issue on site. You know, I just talked to him on the phone, he's going to be calling in 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes it's resolved, rather than waiting a week when that engineer has time
you got to call the architect usually, because that's his consultant, and you got to wait. We just walk right down to the office and go, hey, Tony's got an issue. You got to fix this right now, right? And you know how we are.
Yeah.
Oh, you pick up the phone yet? Within 5 minutes. But these people work right with us, so we're right there all the time. You're not waiting for nothing.
Are you insinuating I'm going to have issues?
Well, that's the other thing. Everybody says, and I'll ask the question for you, how do you handle problems? What do you have for problems? Every job has a problem. It's not the problem, it's how you treat the problem and how you react to the problem. If you just put your head in the sand and think it's going to go away, or you don't tell the owner, I said it before, communication, you'll know everything's going on at that site, but if something goes wrong, you'll know about it. If something goes wrong with the drawings, you'll know about it. I'll get involved to make sure to eliminate as much of that as possible, but every construction project has problems. I don't care. I built buildings for Amazon that were 500,000 square feet, and I built houses. Every one of them had an issue. It was all how you handle the issue. If you meet it head on and let everybody know what's going on, then you can resolve it quickly. If you don't, the problem just grows. So there will be problems. We'll handle them. I promise you, I'll handle them. But the bigger thing is that you'll know about it. You're not going to find out from someone on the street, oh, I saw something happen on the site, or this happened, or, you know, the trusses not coming for another week. I heard from the guy down the lumberyard that they were supposed to go last week and didn't hear it. Something goes on, you know about it. You know, we're open, just like open book on the site. You'll get to know me very well.
It's like the punch list, right? This is another thing. We strive not to have punch lists. We have contests, right? Our supers, that Tony, 2 months before we're even turning over the building, he's preparing his own punch list. I mean, our goal is to have you walk through and look around and check everything. Check the hinges. Check if there's a drop of paint in the bottom of the door over there. Is there a little thing in a piece of carpet? We check all that stuff out first before you ever walk through that building. And like Jimmy said, if we're telling you we're going to be done in 13 months, that's done. We're not coming back. You're not picking up the phone and going, when are you going to come back and paint that wall? When are you going to come back and fix that ceiling? All that's going to be done. Yeah, that's our guarantee. I mean, that's what we thrive for.
I think I had like 5 issues in Hudson.
What's that?
I think I had 5 issues in Hudson. Under 5.
Rob said you had 4.
4, yeah. So,
You probably went back and fixed them all the same day, too.
and as soon as we got called, I know we went back. I think it was the toilets weren't flushing right.
That's right. He said the regulator on the urinals wasn't.
That was 2 of them.
Yeah.
That's because you picked the cheap ones.
Yeah, so no, but and that's every job. Air fire department had 0 punch lists. We walk through, but I'll walk with whoever you appoint. You say you can't have 16 people. You'll have the walkthroughs and everything, but we'll have somebody that's designated from the committee. Like, hey, I'm going to work on the landscape. I'll work on the building. Because you don't have other jobs too. You're not going to be there every day like we're going to be there. That's our job, right? But we'll be a liaison. We'd like someone from your committee to be involved in making sure that, hey, this is what we expected, and if there's something different or something wrong, we walk it and talk about it. You know, we're not going to dig our head in the sand and think about it later. No one wins there. We want people to say, hey, they did a good job. And I'm sincere when I say I don't want you to build another project without me involved. That's my goal when I leave here. That when we finish this job, you want to say, call Jim and see if we can get this done.
More the design phase. So we went over, you did go over the different regulations there, the FEMA and things like that. A lot of that's good. The FEMA is more of a guide than the FDA is a regulation. Looking at some of your how much of your experiences here or in the past have been with possible renovation, bringing up to current code, and addition on? Or are you more of a flat ground construction?
Could be either one. I would say one more than the other. The Milford House, firehouse, which is in there, was all new. The Waterbury, 2 Waterbury projects were existing buildings that we were working with. We know you have a building on Park Street, and from not having visited it yet, but having read the reports, it looks like it needs a lot of work.
It would need a lot to bring it to the current code.
Right.
But, I mean, one of the biggest things we're looking at is the best bang for the buck and trying to get the demographics of whether it's there or over here. And essentially parking for about 11 apparatus, the administration space, the dorm space with your kitchen and all that, and then the decon transition spaces. And trying to incorporate that, bringing the HVAC up, stabilization, all that. There's been a site study on there. There is expansion there, but there's a lot of concerns there. I agree with you. FEMA thinks it's great to have drive-through one direction. When vehicles are stacked, they're never going to be driving through unless you empty the house. They're always going to be backing in unless you have a major fire. It's just the nature, because one vehicle is going to be in back of the other. Otherwise, for 11 apparatus straight across, some doubled up, that's a lot of front door bays and back door bays.
That is a trade-off, but sometimes what you can do is you have a bay that's deep enough for a major piece of apparatus in the front and a truck in the back, the chief's car, something like that. And those are easy to back and whatever. When
Park Street doesn't lend itself to drive-through.
Exactly.
Right.
So Park Street would not allow that at all.
So, you know, I mean, we will design that or do a study, preliminary study. You know, at some point, there will have to be a decision. Is that the way you want to go, or is that not the way you want to go? I think the thing, so Park Street has 2 things. One, it has the existing building, and 2, it has just the geometric limits of the site. So setting aside the geometric limits, the building itself, from what I understand, a couple of the major things are it's got a slab that is not strong enough and has already failed. It's not braced or falling over. It's a technical term. Just to correct those is a significant thing. So what do you have left? You have a frame. How valuable is that frame really? I mean, that's.
But again, the study has to be done.
The study has to be done.
Part of it might be more of the emotional attachment to the frame than the. It's just the nature of the beast. It's been around forever. That's been there, good, bad, or indifferent. There's pros and cons, barriers and strengths to both ways of that argument, but it's selling it to the public of benefit. And
well, that's why having some numbers does help.
And for instance, if it's a renovation, right? We go talk to Matt, a structural engineer, and go, we need to go down their building, and he does an analysis, and he goes through, he works for us. He has a complete analysis. I mean, we even do remediation, we even do asbestos removal, we do everything. But no, we have the engineers right in Portland, who will drive down here and work with Bob to understand that.
Yeah. We just, knowing that the community in this area and looking at that station as the primary starting point, maybe the finishing point, it's, as you said, those are some of the known things, as the HVAC, the exhaust systems are all up to speed, the electrical, bringing on, adding the additional bays on, the drainage. There is a lot that would have to be added in. But there's also whether the public would want to see raising it to the ground and adding on to the construction time, or was the construction time equal, shorter with a renovation / add-on. These are the study, absolutely a study and all that, but it's just how much experience you have with that was the concern, because there brings a lot to it, and this design is incredibly critical of the process, as you said, because all that paper time saves so much money with dig time.
So you have a couple examples in what we submitted. A non-fire station project that we were just talking about, actually. It was another project in Connecticut, which had an existing 19th century mill building, a World War II era Quonset hut, and then some additional, and then actually some 1970s additions. For this particular program, we took down all the 70s stuff, left the Quonset hut, but just the roof, left the mill building, and built new buildings and renovated the old part. So we could deal with it.
Okay, it's just it's the nuances of dealing with historical, I don't want change, versus functionality. There's and I just want to make sure, because I'm looking at some of these and it's like, yes, you do have some historical buildings and all this, but they can, if you start adding drive-through spaces, you start going like this, and that's square footage, and that's roofing, that's a lot of cost, where stacking them up. Traditionally, I mean, even Concord, Loudon Road, I'll tell you, they're double deep, too wide. And there's something parked in the back row every day, so that no matter what, they're backing in off of the main street. So I just look at that, because the more you spread out, the more square foot cost.
Square footage costs money.
Exactly, and that's why just looking at these things is, like I said, paper is a lot cheaper than moving dirt, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Sorry for that, but he's got to leave, so we just had to wrap.
Yeah, no. We appreciate your time.
Well, we didn't want to be rude.
If you have any questions that come up after, send them to whoever the chairperson is, and
Peter first.
send them to yourself and send them to us. I know there's a process at all these boards, so I'm like very cognizant about telling someone just call me.
Yeah, our cell phones are on our cards too, so you can call us anytime.
Oh, we handle it. Everybody else is available.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much for your
Yes,
time.
thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everybody, it was a pleasure meeting you. Nice meeting you.
Coach of Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's just, I see where your signs are, and the regulations, the survey.
It's been a lot of jobs, but then it's I said my dad was a
Do you go to the fire station designs at all?
I have 5 friends that have houses on the I spent a lot of time
It is, I went last year, but they offer a lot, they offer a lot of information about regulations. I do a lot of Sunbelt construction. I would perfectly understand what you're saying with
But I got to show you something.
Exactly. It's also talking about they offer a lot of short space regulations. I went to school back in the 90s. So it's not like code enforcement, things like that. Yeah, regulations, FEMA, suggestion on things like that. They are. So, I went last year to shoot this rose because we started talking about actually, Chief would know more about when the conference is. I would ask
one mile. Did you guys are forgetting the landmark? Well, that's only daytime stuff. But I don't see words, you know, freaking.
went down.
So-
Yeah, I know. Breakouts, stuff.
New headquarters,
It's just a lot of,
Then actually,
that's what,
I have a job at MIT.
looking at this,
Rooftop unit, one in the
trying to
center.
figure out the historic procedure for the farm
I did another
people,
job, moved to
residents,
Boston,
it's
from,
four wide
their old
garage,
site.
four wide, two deep.
Is in the center of
I
town?
moved them into what these are. I went to the meeting,
Either
and
Pat
they said, well, we're
or-
totally
or-
scheduled.
or
So before I went to the meeting, I
It's
looked at the drawing.
the drainage doesn't go
It's been 16 weeks to get the unit.
And I just stayed with them for like 6 weeks, 5 days.
A week to ship it, so I told them each one we
It was
scheduled.
either off of North
They
Street
said,
or Pleasant Street, one or the other.
everybody else said they got it, 12 weeks, I scheduled. So I just told them what do you want to hear.
Something like that.
None of the projects, I can't do it. So we left the job, walked back to the office downtown Boston. We didn't go back to the office. You guys come back.
Because I lived that
We
one.
went to our floor, so I gave them all the manufacturer, and told the guy, we sold them. So it was like,
Because I had some mail sent somehow. My brother knows all that.
But it's still tax. The other thing that we're talking about is best attachment.
So I would be heavily involved in the oversight of the project.
This, this goes a certain way, depending on what you do inside,
Yeah.
still brings HVAC,
For the,
the drainage and stuff. So the standard.
Oh, really?
is about 15.
I want to show you the picture.
Add that on the new side.
well, he was in construction business anyway, so he has.
Mike,
He told us that.
that's their job at MIT. They told everybody, couldn't be done. You can't just get a helicopter and set it.
But right now.
I-
we have
So I mentioned the convention out of St. Mike.
I asked.
And we, conventions, everything, sizing units.
I think we should just-
No,
we have to end the meeting and we have to, before we do that, we have to set the next.
Nobody,
Nobody.
nobody visits, we should probably listen.
But we got it done.
No.
We're still in session.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Well, let's wrap it up then.
Well, we want to discuss our next meeting.
Mike's awesome.
Is there anything else we need?
It's on your talking.
No, I don't think so.
They're still in session.
Yeah,
Their meeting's still in session.
so, yeah, we just.
They know people, they won't know people on the other side, so. Jimmy, we gotta get going, they gotta get going too.
All right.
I'll
send it to you.
Good for all cars with solar roofs on them all and all that stuff.
Yeah, Mike and Matt over there.
Oh, they have drones and stuff. fire
They couldn't find a unit, they walked through the yard, they put it in the wrong spot. And I found it. It took 40
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks
45
again.
minutes.
Thank you. Take care now.
Thanks, Sergeant. John, right?
Yes.
All right, we're still in session. We have one more piece of business
Thanks
before we
again.
go.
You're welcome.
And that's to schedule our next meeting as far as I know. Are you
This
still
thing
recording?
right now. Nope. Battery died.
Oh, this is still going.
That's still going. That's why we have the two.
All right, so it's been proposed that we meet on Monday, April 3rd. April 3rd at 5:30.
Is it third?
Where?
I'm gonna find that out, I'll let you know. We'll get Kathy on what's available.
Is that,
I mean, if I'm driving the presentation for you too.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, so,
I think I don't have anything left to do.
okay,
I'm in favor of it, but I won't be on committee.
that's right. We don't have to vote on that, we just have to decide.
You're you're acting as the chair, you can set the date, period.
All right, so we're setting a date for that, and then we'll review all the content that we discussed
You
here.
want
Is
me to
there
leave these behind or?
anything else that we
We'll
need to
take care of
discuss?
it.
You're leaving.
Yeah, we'll take
Any
care
other
of it.
members weren't here?
I'm sorry?
Anything else we need to discuss before we adjourn the meeting?
I don't think so. Because anything else, the discussion about the presentations will be a non-public.
Okay. Then, motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Okay, so, second? Sure. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5:30, meeting adjourned.
Okay.